Hello, I'm Judith. This is Lulu, my assistant's dog. So she comes with me everywhere I go, she comes as well. I suffer with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS for short, and I also have fibromyalgia, so I'm in pain every day, all day. I've had adaptations fitted to my car, which means I'm now able to drive by myself, go out and have confidence because I'm driving by myself without any stress or worry. So here you go. Hello, I'm Judith.
I'm Rachel. Judith is my daughter.
And this is Lulu, my assistant's dog. So I suffer with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and fibromyalgia. So Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is EDS, and it's commonly referred to as hypermobility, but it is an awful lot more than that. It isn't just that I'm really flexible, and that's the misconception with that one. So yes, I'm flexible in certain areas of my body, in other areas I'm perfectly what you would class as being normal. And I suffer with dislocations and subluxations. So subluxations are where a joint doesn't fully dislocate, but it goes out and then goes back in straight away. So my shoulders sublocate and I have dislocations of hips, knees and ankles. And that's Ehlers-Danlos is an awful lot more, and you get complications with your internal organs as well as externally. You have your dislocations, but you're also in a lot of pain. With fibromyalgia, obviously I'm in lots of different types of pain. So it does make life interesting, and you just kind of battle through, if I'm honest. Don't we? Yeah, I know. I know. Are you looking at Charlie? No, you're going to kiss my nose. Okay, you kiss my nose. Thank you.
As a small child, Judith was perfectly happy, no physical problems whatsoever, quite the opposite. Always very, very adventurous, very boisterous, real tomboy. Liked to climb things. She was always very sporty. Followed her father's footsteps, playing badminton. Started playing badminton at roughly the age of 4. Went on to play for the county and eventually became a fully qualified badminton coach at level 2, which is unusual for somebody of the age of 18, which is when she passed. Not long after that was when she started having problems with her knee due to an undiagnosed dislocation. Just as an example of how determined she can be, she did her silver Duke of Edinburgh's expedition on a dislocated knee. She was determined she was going to walk. So always been very strong, very sporty, very single-minded, very stubborn. Can't think where that comes from, but there you go.
So before I was diagnosed, I was playing badminton 3, nearly 4 times a week. And in between that, I was also doing other exercises like running, core exercises, so building up muscle. Can't do that now. Can't do any badminton, so unless I'm in a wheelchair, which I haven't got the right kind of wheelchair because that's too much at the moment. So we're just trying to find a way of potentially funding a way forward and creating it so that it makes more people aware, and so that I can get back into my sport again, because I was really sporty. I love doing sport. On top of that, I used to do a lot of playing piano. I used to do a lot of painting and drawing and art and crafty things like knitting and crochet and sewing. I actually embroidered an entire quilt. I made a quilt, but I can't do that now, so I've got to change how I sew and change how I do my craft. I still knit, but I've got to do it as like, okay, I've got a set time now, so I'll do like half an hour knitting and then I have to stop, because otherwise my hand's going to cramp and then I end up with very, very weird shapes with my hands. It's just uncomfortable then. So it's trying to find ways of simplifying what I do rather than stopping doing it. So yeah, no more sport, but I am doing all my craft. Yeah. Okay, so in the beginning of my diagnosis of EDS, I had just one joint go out an awful lot. So that started off with my dyslexia and trying to remember left and right. Left knee, and it kept going out and out and out to the point where I was falling into the road. I fell down concrete stairs, I was falling upstairs, I was falling down them, nearly getting hit by cars who didn't really care about pedestrians at all. And it just kind of progressed from there. And then I had a fall that meant my knee just would not go back in. So it was constantly out of joint, but it felt like it needed to go even further out of joint. And then my ankle started to go, and I was thinking, this is getting a bit ridiculous. So I presented myself to the GP, and they just said, oh, it's soft tissue. Nothing to worry about, it's soft tissue. Wait 6 weeks and it'll be better. So I waited 6 weeks, and it still wasn't any better. It wasn't getting better. In fact, it was getting worse.
And it just became increasingly difficult for her to cope with the problems that she was having with her knee. We went through 2, maybe 3 years of physiotherapy. We even had a physiotherapist telling her that the pain that she was experiencing was in her mind. There was nothing wrong with it. She had a procedure called a chondroplasty, where they clean out the inside of the kneecap, because she had some cartilage become dislodged as a result of the dislocation. Still didn't resolve the problems, it was still collapsing.
My mum decided that actually the best thing to do was go to a private physio and just see if they could loosen off muscles and things like that. And the private physio took one look at me and he went, well, you know your knee's dislocated and out of joint, don't you? And I went, no, I've just been told it's soft tissue. And he went, no, it's about 20-25 degrees out of joint. And I was like, oh, okay, that explains why the pain's so bad. Doesn't explain how they missed it if it's that blooming obvious. So he did a load of deep muscle therapy on me, where he was massaging every single tendon, every single muscle and ligament around my knee and trying to get it to go back in. Obviously he was able to get it back in, but then it would pop back out again. So it was just trying to find that balance. In the end, I ended up having a really horrible surgery called a triple T, or a tibial tuberosity transfer. And they effectively cut out a part of your tibia. So they remove that part of the bone and they use it as like a bone graft, and they bone graft your knee back into position, and then they tear your ligaments apart and then reattach them. So I've ended up with 3 screws in my knee, holding that all together. And that sorted that knee out. Obviously it still wants to go out of joint, but it can't anymore because it's fixed in place with the screws. But that meant all my other joints started to go, because they were like, well, if that one can't go, I'll go with somewhere else. So my hips then started to go. And it kind of kept progressing and progressing and progressing. I was like, this is ridiculous, I need to see somebody. And they just kept saying, oh, it's hypermobile, you're just hypermobile, get on with it, it's fine, you're not in pain, it's in your head. You're making it up to get attention, all the stuff that you don't really want to hear from a medical profession, but you hear it anyway.
And by sheer chance, just before lockdown, she went to see her GP, who was training a trainee GP, and our doctor gave the trainee Judith's file as a good case study and said, see what you think about this. I've known this young lady for quite some time, have a look. And it was the young trainee who, having gone from beginning to end, who said, I think this might be EDS. He'd been able to join the dots, whereas previously, as with most cases of EDS, you tend to do firefighting. So you'll go to your GP with a problem, that will be dealt with. You go with another problem, that will be dealt with. And you can go on like that all the way down the line for 10, even 20 years in some cases, before somebody will finally join all the dots and say, actually, this is EDS. And that's exactly what happened with Judith. So yes, looking back, we can see other signs, but we weren't aware at the time that that's what the eventual outcome would be. It was just, well, she has a problem at the moment, let's get that sorted. And that's how we went on for quite some time.
But yeah, it's taken a long time. It's taken me 7 years now. And that's actually quite short. Some people it take 15 years. So I'm quite lucky in that sense. But yeah, we don't know when it will stabilise, but we just carry on and see where it goes from there. There you go. What are you looking at?
In terms of actually getting the diagnosis, in many ways it was a relief, because I hate to say it, but it is putting a label on it. And I know for a lot of people labels don't work. I know there is a movement to try and get away from labels, but actually in many cases it helps, because suddenly you've got an understanding. Yes, it's a label, but it's like a little package. Having that label and you've got a little box and it's got all those different symptoms in it, and suddenly you think, I know what I'm dealing with. So in many ways it was a relief. There were obviously concerns because very, very unusually, Judith has a friend who has a very severe form of EDS. And this person wasn't expected to live past about the age of 5 or 6 and is now in her 30s. She has a life-limiting version of EDS. So Judith was very aware of what EDS is and how it can affect somebody in its worst form. So for us, getting the diagnosis, as I say, in one sense was a relief, because we could now understand what was going on, why she was feeling the way she's feeling, how it was affecting her body and why her body was doing certain things. But then also knowing the long-term consequences and not knowing yet whether she's stabilised, how much worse is she going to get? Is she going to get an awful lot worse?
And it's still progressing, so my shoulders now sublocate, so they're not always brilliant. I'm having a good day with the shoulders, but some days are really bad, so I can't really push myself anywhere. My hands have a tendency to go into spasm, so they go into all sorts of wacky positions. I have very limited feeling in my legs, so while I can walk when I'm at home, as long as I have a walking stick or a trolley, it does take a while to get around anywhere. So anywhere that's further than about 40 yards, I have to use my chair because I can't feel my legs to do the walking, and my hips just want to dislocate. So it's just trying to find a way of, eventually it will stabilise, so I won't have any more dislocations, but we don't know when that's going to be, because I've had late onset Ehlers-Danlos loss, so it's started a lot later than most people's. So most people are born with it and it's really recognisable straight away. With me, I've been diagnosed, it started at the age of 16, and then I got diagnosed last year, so when I was 24.
As a parent, that was really hard, really hard. Having seen a young woman who had gone from this extremely sporty, involved person to somebody who's suddenly in a wheelchair because it's too painful to walk. And I can't stop that pain because she also has fibromyalgia. And as a mum, not being able to take that pain away and knowing I will never be able to take that pain away because it's never going to go, that was really, really hard. And I had some very, very dark moments. So yeah, it's not pleasant, but I suppose in a way I was lucky because we had that gradual movement into this area. It's not like she had a car accident and was suddenly paralysed from the waist down and, hey, we've got to deal with this. We had those little adjustments through the years that, as I say, possibly we weren't even aware we'd made. So I think it was slightly easier in that respect. It's knowing to a certain degree what the future holds for Judith, but also not knowing what the future holds for her. It's a double-edged sword. Judith had always had minor problems because of her dyslexia and because of her processing disorder, which is linked to the dyslexia, it's not separate. I've probably been more involved with her support than I realise. Now, moving forward, I'm more involved with the more physical side of caring. Okay, at the moment she's fine, she can undress, she can wash, she can do all those kinds of things for herself. But we don't know if that's going to continue. Hopefully, yes, she's not going to get an awful lot worse, but she may need more personal care moving onwards. At the moment, for me, it's a case of if we go out anywhere, I have to be aware that she's in the wheelchair, so I may have to push. I may have to be aware that, yes, she's pushing at the moment, but have her hands gone, and am I going to have to step in? If we are in a coffee shop or a restaurant, I'm having to often cut up her food for her because she can't manage the cutlery all the time. Sometimes she can, sometimes she can't. And it's been a big adjustment for both of us because suddenly there are occasions when I'm literally having to feed her because her hands have gone into spasm and she cannot hold anything. And Judith has found that extremely difficult to come to terms with at times when we're out in public. And to a certain extent that's rubbed off on me, and it's kind of, and I'm trying to normalise it and say, look, it's fine, doesn't matter, we just get on with it, you've got to eat, it's fine. But it is hard, it is very, very difficult, and I am now officially her carer. I am a registered carer with my local authority. And coming to terms with that is quite difficult. Because suddenly I'm thinking, I haven't got the freedom that I used to have. You know, every parent dreams of the day when they can pack their child off either to university or to a new house, and everybody talks about sort of empty nest syndrome, and I'm thinking, not sure I'm ever going to have that, because I'm not sure Judith's going to be able to live independently for quite some time yet. She will, because that's just how she is. There's no way she's not going to live independently if she possibly can. But we're still at the very start of what is potentially a very long journey. And we don't know how long it's going to be before she's going to reach the level of independence that she wants. So it is a balancing act, and it's kind of little steps at a time, and I do try to pull back occasionally. It's very easy to sort of just automatically step in, which my husband will often do, and it's kind of, no, it's all right, she's fine, let her do it, you know. And I'm better at doing that than my husband is, but it's, you know, she's not stupid, she's not totally incapable. Why would I want to take that independence away? So I wait until she asks me. And it's kind of, Mum, I can't do this, can you help me? Fine, I'll do it. But otherwise, when we're at home, I will deliberately not go and make her a drink, because it's good for her to get up and go and make a drink herself. But occasionally she can't do that, and she'll just say, I'm sorry, I can't, my leg's not moving. can you do the drink for me? And that's fine, so I'll step in that way. So in terms of how it's affecting me as a parent, it's taking away my independence as well as her independence, because we're having to depend on each other more than we anticipated given her age. And we don't know how much longer that's going to go on. So.
Lulu is my assistance dog, who we've been a qualified team for a year now, and she helps daily by alerting me, even though she's not supposed to, but she does. So she alerts me medically, she helps me undress, she fetches help. What else do you do? Deep pressure therapy, so she'll sit on a certain joint or pressure point, and then she will just kind of stay there. So people think, oh, she's being really lazy when she's sitting on my lap in my chair, but actually she's doing her job.
We do talk about it a lot. Judith is very open, and she would far rather people come up to her and ask, you know, what is your problem? Because it's making people aware. And EDS actually is becoming more well known within the wider community. So people are less surprised now when you say, oh, I've got EDS. And Judith has always been a natural teacher. I've always said she was born to teach in whatever capacity. And she is very good at getting that message across. And it's almost a mission for her to make people informed. She's very, very hot on disability awareness and inclusion. And that was before she had any of her problems. It's something she's always been passionate about right from her early teens, was inclusion, and making things far more accessible for people, regardless of what that disability is, whether it's a learning disability, a physical disability, or whatever. So she's always been extremely happy to talk about it. And I suppose that in a way that's rubbed off on me. And actually during May, it was EDS Awareness Month. And I had a little zebra because that's their logo, and I had it sitting on my computer at work. And I just thought, well, I'll see what happens. And it was amazing, the number of people who spotted the zebra and said, why have you got a zebra on your computer? I said, and I would explain it to them. So over the course of about a month, I've got very used to talking about EDS and explaining it. But it's amazing the difference that's made in the office. People suddenly aware that I'm now a carer. And Judith's been in hospital recently, and it's are you all right? Is there anything we can do for you? And that's very, very strange. It's really strange, but suddenly they're saying, well, you know, you must be under pressure because of what Judith's going through and how that's impacting on you. So, you know, you do get used to talking about it. But part of that is getting the message out there. And it's not just about EDS, it's about disability awareness in general.
So obviously I wear the sunflower lanyard when I'm out and about, so that people are aware that I have a disability that isn't necessarily on show. So they see the wheelchair and they think, oh, okay, that's fine. But then I'll suddenly get out of the wheelchair and they'll go, that's a bit weird. But then they notice the sunflower lanyard, and I then explain that, you know, I have these disabilities and they're not immediately obvious to others. So I also have asthma as well as using a wheelchair. So I have to kind of balance, am I walking a little bit? Am I going to be in the chair? Am I going to be standing for a short time just to stretch out everything? So I would say I use a bit of every description of what a disability is rather than one specific type, if that makes sense.
I worked in a secondary school, and we had a new head teacher come in just about the time that the sunflower lanyards were really beginning to take off. and he got a supply in, and he gave one to every child who was known to be on the autistic spectrum, who had Tourette's, who had dyslexia. And it was amazing the difference it made to those children in the classroom, because suddenly they'd got a very subtle way of alerting the teacher to the fact that, oh, this child might have a bit of a problem somewhere. It would stop a Tourette's child getting into trouble for making silly noises, because suddenly they'd say, oh, they've got a lanyard, okay, I better just check on their record. Why are they wearing it? Oh, okay, that's why. So it won't give them a detention. And it made a huge difference, and it's something so small. You know, all the naughty kids, the problem teenagers that were around 30, 40 years ago are probably actually struggling with either mental illness, or they could have things like ADHD, they could be on the spectrum at various levels, but we're better at diagnosing it now and better at understanding it. And I think people are becoming more aware. It is more spoken about in the media, in school, and that kind of thing. So I think people are becoming more aware, but we've still got an awfully long way to go.
So I actually passed my test in a manual car, and that was in 6 years ago. That was really straightforward. I had issues, but it wasn't major. So the main issue I had was with the clutch. So some days I could drive no problem, didn't have any issues with the clutch control, or with changing gear or accelerating and braking and things like that. And then it got to a point where I was like, this is not very safe, because my leg wouldn't let me push down. I couldn't then just slowly release. It would either quickly release or wouldn't release at all. So I ended up obviously coasting, which is against the law. So I stopped driving because I was too scared to. And I managed to be awarded PIP, so personal independence payment, and that's managed to fund a car. So I've changed to a automatic, which means I don't have to use my left leg at all, which is brilliant because I've actually got my freedom. So yeah, that's my journey. It took me a lot longer to learn to drive as well, simply because I couldn't use my leg. So some days were really good, and then other days I couldn't actually do anything because my knee was completely out and I couldn't get it to go back in. So it did take me a lot longer. But I had a really good driving instructor who was really, really understanding. So it was really good in that sense. And I love driving. It's so freeing and things like that. So yeah.
Generally speaking, I'm not involved in terms of the driving, but just occasionally she will be too tired because she's had a particularly bad day or bad week with pain, for example, and in which case I will take over the driving. I do usually have a battle on my hands, however, because again, it's taking away that independence, because for Judith, the car is her independence. Without that, she doesn't feel that she's anything. She hates the idea of not being able to drive. So I don't do as much driving possibly as some people would do with Judith, but coming up here today to do the filming, I've driven because she's not been well recently, and even she recognised it wouldn't be safe.
The issues I'm having though is in the steering, because yes I know, my breathing went out, thank you. Because I can't predict when my hands will go, steering has become an issue. So I'm hoping that the adaptions will help me with that and I can have my independence back in that respect again. Because I can't drive my car at the moment, because if my hands go, steering is, well, it's a bit scary. There are a lot of other words you can use, but it's not safe. And we want people to feel safe in their cars, and I definitely want to feel safe in my car. It is a massive thing for me to drive. It was brilliant when I passed, and it gave me so much freedom, and I love driving. I know lots of people hate it, but I love it. I find it really relaxing. And it's just a sense of freedom, like I don't have to worry about anything else, I can just drive. But obviously when your hands are going and you can't use your legs properly, and you're trying to drive and then you're not driving properly because you're worried about that. So I've got to a point where it's like I need these adaptions now. But it was, for a while, brilliant while I was just driving without anything other than just the steering wheel and the automatic, but now it's got to a point where I need the adaptions. Okay, it's a lot sooner than we thought I would need them, but it's how my body is telling me, you know, it's time for you to buck up effectively and get these adaptions because you need them. So I think my body is telling me more than my mind, if I'm honest. I kind of knew it in the back of my head subconsciously that it was getting a lot harder. So getting in and out of the car is a big issue, because I can't feel my legs all the time. Trying to turn and then come out of a car isn't always easy, I think is a polite way of putting it. It's really difficult. So we've noticed that those are a big issue. And the other one's trying to like close a boot once you're in your wheelchair. You can't reach the flipping handles to pull them down. So that's entertaining. Like you're kind of pushing yourself up to try and reach a handle. So you look a bit strange in a car park at times because you kind of got one hand on there and then you've got the other pushing up on the boot, and it's just not fun. And then you've got the dog trying to come round as well, and she's like, "Mom, you need help," and she's trying to help, and you're like, "I can't do everything." It's a nightmare. So you're kind of trying to tell the assistant to stay on the floor. I'm fine. I'm trying to put this down because she thinks I'm about to fall over. So it can be quite funny and entertaining in a car park, but not necessarily fun and safe, shall we say. I think that's probably the best way of putting it. Because you are a little bit of a nuisance at times, aren't you? Yeah, right on cue, thank you.
We were aware of them. We weren't aware of how to get hold of them, what the companies were, but I mean, obviously we've seen people using adapted cars. We've heard through Motability that you can have an adapted car, but we weren't sure exactly what was available. The fact that there are so many different options depending on what your need is, we had no idea of that. This is all very, very new to us. Not just in terms of driving, but in terms of all disability aids, for want of a better expression. It's just trying to find out what's out there, what's going to be useful, what isn't going to be useful. And we were finding, certainly at that time, there didn't seem to be an awful lot of advice. It's just kind of, well, you go on the internet and you say, oh, that looks good, that looks good, that looks good. But actually, is it? We really needed somebody to talk to and say, actually, I think if we assess you, this might be a better option. This might be a better option. We heard about Mobility in Motion when we went to NAIDEX.
We were just walking around and we spotted the company and we thought, oh, I know, let's have a quick look and see if they have got any of the hand grips, because that was the main thing I was looking for. And at least I can have that conversation and just see how it works. And I ended up staying there for 45 minutes. We were actually on our way home, but we walked past you on the way out, so we were kind of like, oh, let's just have a quick look, and we were there for 45 minutes, so that was fine. And it was lovely. So I was able to try out how they felt and how they would work. So I tried the transfer plate, and I was like, oh, it's so easy to get in and out. I need one of these. And then I was explaining the issues I was having with my hands. And it was really useful because I got to try the different types of grip. So I was thinking a steering ball, so it's just a ball that you put your hand on in grip. I thought that would be a really useful one. But then once I was trying it, actually we thought that's no different to holding a steering wheel. Instead you're just holding the top of it rather than the side. So we thought that one maybe not the best. And we also looked at like a handle one, but again we thought it's not great because if my hand goes, I'm completely hands-free on the car, which again, not safe. So we came to the decision of the Tetra Grip, and I tried that one and it was brilliant. And I was like, oh, I can actually steer the car, no problem. And if my hand does go, my hand's not going anywhere because I've got the point of contact on my wrist. So at least I could still steer with my wrist and be safe and just pull over without any issues. And then the boot handle was just from talking to people, and they were kind of saying these are the we've got two options that you could try, and just trying them out and seeing how they felt. So got a lot of help and support and just kind of explaining how each product worked and what the benefits and things would be with those products. So it was at Nadex, and then just to double check everything, we went to the Motability showcase again at the NEC, and we saw everything again, and I tried it out again and I was like, I love it. So yeah. Today I'm getting the Tetra Grip, so it's the 3-point triangle, which looks a bit like a torture instrument. When I first saw it, I was like, it doesn't look really comfy. But actually, once I tried it in the training, and just kind of felt how it was, I was like, oh, it's so comfy, and it will make life a lot easier. So I'm getting the Tetra Grip, the transfer plate, so I can get in and out of my car in stages rather than just in one fell swoop where I kind of fall out of the car or fall into it. At least I'm just kind of sliding out, okay, perch a second, and then slide into the chair. So that's a big bonus. And then also a boot handle that is a lot longer. So once I'm in my chair, I can actually close the boot without looking like a complete and utter wally. So those are what I'm getting today, which is really exciting. It's nice because a lot of stuff doesn't feel as if it's for younger people, should we say, but it doesn't look old-fashioned, shall we put it that way. So I know that a lot of the stuff, when I've been looking for things that are for those with disabilities, it's been either cream or beige, or really, if you think of an old person's care home, but 80s colours and prints, and you're thinking, I don't want that. I'm 24, 25, don't really want to look like an old lady. I'm not an old lady, I'm young and I want to be, but the equipment that is offered doesn't look old-fashioned, it looks really new, it looks funky as well, I think is probably the best way of putting it. And I'm like, oh, I've got a funky load of kit going in my car and I'm going to look really nice when I'm out driving, and I'm not going to feel disabled, I'm going to feel normal even if I am disabled. So yeah, I'm just really excited. I mean, usually I'm using any little thing
To hold on to.
to hold on
You
to.
don't need to.
I don't need to. I can literally just
That's
swing in
brilliant.
and use the chair and the edge of that.
That's brilliant. that's a huge difference. Just that little thing. Massive difference for you. And it's not going to drag on your back. Doing it either, so
No.
it's not going to get you alright.
Yeah. It's a lot. Sorry.
A bit overwhelmed. You're getting me going there.
Sorry.
But it's like I said, it's little things and it makes me, I know, but it's something so apparently insignificant. But I can see already that it's going to have a huge impact on her. It's so much easier for her getting in and out of the car, something so simple that we all take for granted. Oh, it's brilliant. And the Tetra grip. That's amazing because you're going to feel safer. I'm going to feel happier knowing that she's safer.
Petrified every time I got in the car to drive. Because I was like, if my hands go, I can't control the car. My hand is literally locked into a position. Even if it goes, it's locked in.
You can still control the car.
And I can still control it. And I haven't lost that now, which I was...
And again, it's that silly little thing. She can close the boot herself, even from her wheelchair. It's just...
It's been a huge impact positively, and it's given me more confidence that I forgot I had, which is nice. It's been brilliant since having all three and using all three at the same time, because it means if I stop at a service station, I can just kind of go, okay, I can just slide out and I'm at the service station and I can slide back in again and everybody's looking at me and I'm like, yay! But I don't care because it's really comfy and really easy to do, whereas before I'd try and just drive until I get to the end because I was like, I can't keep doing the getting in and out. So I'd try and minimise the distance that I was doing, whereas now I'm slowly increasing the distance again, which is really nice. So coming up here by myself, I felt really at ease, and we stopped off momentarily just because the traffic was horrendous. But I was able to do it, and I've got back in the car and I've not stressed about anything. It was just really straightforward, which was brilliant. So now I'm building up my confidence to go out by myself, whereas before I wouldn't have done because I'd be too scared to drive anywhere without somebody else in the car. So it's kind of like I can get to work really easily. I don't have to stress about getting in and out of work. I can just drive safely, and being able to do that to go on holiday is kind of like the next big thing. I'm like, oh, that's coming up really, really soon. So in a few weeks I'll be driving down to Cornwall by myself. So that's exciting. I can drive to places. It's been a huge impact, and it's given me a lot more freedom that I didn't have before because I'm able to get out by myself. So before I was relying on my mum coming because she's my carer, and now I don't have to. I can be by myself and be confident at the same time. So that's, yeah, it's been a big thing. Now that I've got the adaptations, I'm able to travel longer distances by myself, which is so exciting. And I'm like, this is the furthest I've been by myself so far, so I'm just like, I'm on cloud 9 really.